This is the GPL Podcast from GopherPuckLive.com. This podcast is sponsored by Jerry Peters and First Class Mortgage. Our expertise, your peace of mind. Visit us at FirstClassMortgage.com. Now let's start the show with your hosts, Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL Podcast, episode number 214. Well, Viggs. Oh, sorry. There he is. How you doing, Viggs?
I'm doing really well. I am excited as you can be for this week. I mean,
well, you should be.
I mean, there's a lot of excitement on campus with this team right now. I think we're going to get a great crowd for the weekend and just a phenomenal time to be watching college hockey.
Well, it's going to be a nice atmosphere. It's going to be a great atmosphere at Mariucci this weekend. We're really excited, but we're also going to have a first-time guest on the podcast this week. You know, he's been around college hockey for a long time, calling games on various networks and leagues. This weekend, he'll be calling the BigTen Championship with Fred Pletch on the BigTen Network. Let's welcome Ben Holden to the podcast. Ben, thanks for joining us.
I'm not hearing you guys real well. Everything's on a delay, so it's like
that's okay.
Super slow-mo speed.
That's okay. If you can at least hear us. Sorry about the delay.
Do you have the echo cancellation going, Jupe?
I do have the
for me once.
Well, let me check that.
It's like super slow.
Oh, boy.
Should I reconnect?
Why don't you do that? We'll just come right back and we'll bring you right back. This is what live television's all about. If you want, just drop off and come back on. We'll let you do that. Meanwhile, Viggs, we'll get Ben back here.
First guest, first time, technical issues. That's how we do it here.
Well, the thing is, never fails. It was working just perfectly right before we started. Never fails, huh? Never.
Well, the
fails.
Gophers were working just perfectly until they got in the second period against Penn State last weekend. I got pretty nervous throughout that game as it went on. You know, they maybe had a little bit of rust in those first 5 minutes, but I thought they kind of got into their game flow pretty quickly in the second half of the first period. And we thought, okay, you know, they get a lead here. They're up 1-0. You know, they get that second goal on the power play real early in the second. You're like, okay, they're going to be in cruise control. And then all of a sudden, like a lot of the things about Gopher hockey that make us worried started showing up in that second period. You know, Penn State was really disciplined, even down 2-0, stacking 3 across the blue line, either in the offensive zone when they turned the puck over or on regroups in the neutral zone. You know, they were dropping 3 back across the blue line, and the Gophers just started skating pucks right into those defensive players, and it created a lot of problems that made a lot of people at Mariucci nervous during that intermission. Do
we have you a little better now, Ben?
I'm good, boys.
Sweet. Hey, we have had so many issues over the past years. That is nothing. And I'll give you a little quick. I had a smoke detector go off in my house during a podcast once while we were live. So this is why we do it live, because people get to see how everything works.
Yeah. Everybody thinks that radio and television and all this stuff is all this glamour, and it's not. So no, it's great to be on with you guys. And yeah, it was super slowed down. It was like super slow-mo. I couldn't hear anything.
Hey, we got you fixed now. Don't anybody breathe. I think we're good. Well, Ben, you're calling the game this weekend with Fred Pletch. I love Fred. He's such a solid guy. But this is your first BigTen Championship. Boy, you've been over on the NCHC for many years. That you've come over to the dark side.
Yeah, I came to the dark side, man. So, you know, Freddie and I have known each other a long time, and you know, I love working with him. He's we're similar in the sense that we can both do just about anything. I could do color, he could call it. We could go between the benches. I have a lot of respect for Fred, and when he was running the CCHA the last couple of years, he came to me and he helped me out a lot. And I never forgot that. And he got me on 2 of the CCHA tournaments, and we did a weekly show, which was a lot of fun. And I'm enjoying being in the conference. And as you guys know, I've done Michigan for years and Michigan State, and it's great to do Minnesota. I know what great fans you guys have, and I've known Bob a long time, so it's cool to be where I'm at, and I'm really really excited. We told Ben Myers today. We said, Freddie and I, we said, hey, we're just excited as you, brother. So let's get ready to rumble here. It's going to be a hell of a night.
Well, Vegas, let's just go quickly back to Penn State. We know that Minnesota started really well. Second period was not great, but according to Bob today, he didn't kick any garbage cans.
Right. He's held firm that he's just kicked the garbage can once during this season, and I'd have to go back through the schedule to pick which one it was. But I think he's shown tremendous restraint this year, because I know the fans have wanted to kick the garbage can probably 5 or 6 times during the season. But he's been patient with this group, and he's given his players some rope, and they haven't hung themselves, and they've put themselves in a great spot headed in the last game before the NCAA tournament.
And oops, sorry, I clicked a button. That was me. Now, Viggs, in the end, Sammy Walker came through. Leadership captain came through. But honestly, that line, we're going to be a little critical here, had done nothing the entire game. But they did come through in the end, didn't they?
Well, and notice what happened at the end of the game is the Walker line got back-to-back odd man rushes. And I think coming into the night, Guy Godowski had been very adamant that his team was not going to give up odd man rushes to the Gophers, and he was going to make them work for it. And the Walker line just didn't seem to pick that up throughout the game. And they didn't take advantage of getting pucks deep and putting some pressure. Penn State was playing their defenseman number 4, number 5 a lot of minutes. And I didn't think the Gophers were making them get on puck retrievals, making them work and tire themselves out. It was almost like Minnesota was doing a favor, having quick one-and-done shifts, especially throughout the second period, and that Walker line especially. And when they got those 2-man odd-man rushes at the end, the first one they missed on a little bit, but then Walker made it count on the second one with a great pass for McLaughlin and a nice turnover that Brodzinski forced.
And then you've got the flip side, Ben. Up at Michigan slayed some demons because Notre Dame had their number all season long.
They did. And, I think there's a lot of people around the country that look at this Michigan team. And, I'll be honest, I was in that group. Can they win that kind of hard tooth and nail type of game that we're going to see the rest of the way? And I watched all 4 of those games that they played against Notre Dame last week. I hadn't seen Notre Dame since last year, and I did them once, so I needed to do a lot of homework. And so I wanted to know and see what happened in those games. And really my biggest observation was they weren't hard enough when they needed to be hard in the areas they got to be hard in. And Brendan Brisson said to Freddie and I after the game, he said, hey, we played a man's game. They did. And, it's going to take that the rest of the way, as we know. So it was a really good effort by them. It was a great hockey game. And, look, we all know Notre Dame's, they don't have the talent. And no one has the talent. Even Brock Faber joked today. He said, what do they got? 7 first rounders, and we don't have that because Fred and I were making the point of how close these two teams really are matched in their whole body of work and the way their teams are made up. That was kind of the genesis of it. But Notre Dame's got to do it by committee. And Michigan's best guys were their best guys. And I know that we'll get into this as we go, but that's going to be a major factor in this game. You guys are talking about McLaughlin and Walker, and I know how important those guys are. And they've got to be their best guys. Their best guys got to be better than the opposition's best guys. And again, I know we'll dive into that more, but I thought that's what Michigan did, is their best guys were their best guys, and everyone played their role. And and they were hard, and they were a little grittier than they'd been. And I think that was a major reason why they won.
Viggs, I think, at times this year, Michigan has been a lot like Minnesota, where some games they just don't have it. And they're doing exactly what Minnesota's doing, because building up on the season to the end where things are coming together really well. But I see Michigan very similar to Minnesota. Yes, you got all those superstars, but they have to come together and play a team game.
Well, what happens, I think, a lot with teams like Minnesota and Michigan is they can get into a contest where they can get away with scoring on the rush. They can get away with getting power play goals from their most talented guys, and they don't have to work every night. You can get away with it some nights where you're not, getting a ground game going and being disciplined, getting pucks behind the D and wearing a team down. But against the top teams or structured teams like Notre Dame and Ohio State, you usually can't get away with that. You're going to have to go to your ground game, and you're going to have your players win shift to shift to shift and gain momentum and have shift discipline and all the things that pay off in the NCAA tournament. And, some nights the top teams just aren't going to be challenged that way. So it can be a real test for teams to go, okay, I really need to play a disciplined hockey game tonight. Can I do it? And some nights we've seen Minnesota be able to do that. And especially in the stretch of games, they have been able to get the ground game going. But you just see little slips where they just don't dedicate themselves to that kind of hockey game. And it can cost you. And at this time of the year, it almost cost Minnesota on Saturday, where they'd have the bye week, the semifinal game, and then a bye week coming in, say, AA tournament. And luckily for them, they got that goal, so they get to play again this week.
And Ben, you've seen the exact same thing with Michigan this year. Sometimes they're world beaters. Sometimes you kind of wonder what's happening. But that's just kind of the nature of having such young talent.
Yeah, it is. And, again, this week, doing what I did last week, watching every game back between the two teams. Think back to Freddie and I did both those games at Yost. And Michigan pounds them 5-2, and Minnesota pounds them 5-2 the first night. And then Michigan comes back and pounds them 6-2. So it's as close as they are, like I was saying earlier, as close as they are, that's a part of one of the maybe the small parts of any obscurity between these two teams that they did it to one another. So, yeah, I think that's what happened. I think, and in that second game, I noticed a lot of Michigan against Minnesota in December on the 4th, doing what I mentioned earlier about what Michigan did last Saturday against Notre Dame. They played harder. They played grittier. They sold out more. Look, nobody blocks more shots than Notre Dame in the country. I don't think either one of these teams would be doing anywhere near the volume of that. Sure, they'll block shots, but not like Notre Dame block shots, So, I think that Michigan has had their bumps like that too, like Bob's team has. So, but to me, I don't even think it's close. These are the two most skilled and most talented teams in the country, and I'll take 4-3, man. I'd love something like that with these two. So, it's gonna be a heck of a game. So I'm so excited for it.
Well, I do think in that first game of the Minnesota-Michigan series, that 5-2 game, Michigan gave up a lot of offense to Minnesota in that game, and Minnesota pounced on it with their skill. The next night, there were layers to Michigan's defense, and Minnesota found it much more difficult to generate offense and sustain any pressure that second night. Michigan really answered the bell with, probably their film session Saturday morning and getting things back in line. So you kind of wonder, which team are you going to see? Are you going to see a team that's going to come out and not be as disciplined, or are they going to have their game face on, and are they going to play tight structure and force the other team really to wear you down?
Definitely. Hey, Jared Klein, I know you are Ben Holden's biggest fan. Let's see if you've got any questions.
He's my agent.
Ben. He kind of is. He's been trying to get you on here for years. I'm like, well, we just need the timing to be right. And I thought this was perfect timing. So, Jared, I know you're watching. I see the little chat over here. Let's see if you can get any questions for Ben. That would be great. But in the meantime, before we do that, we need to hear from our sponsor.
Hey fellow GPLers, Jerry Peters here from First Class Mortgage. Have you refinanced your home in the last 12 months? If you haven't, chances are you should. Record low interest rates and skyrocketing home values make this the perfect time to remove monthly PMI while improving your interest rate at the same time. You can also use the equity in your home to finance those home improvement projects. Or you can consolidate high interest rate credit cards into one new low monthly payment. To hear more, call or text me today at 612-940-3291. You can email me at jerry@firstclasscorp.com. Or you could go to firstclassmortgage.com to fill out a free online application. Mention the GPL podcast and receive a $300 closing cost credit. Some restrictions do apply. First Class Mortgage's NMLS number is 322842. Mine is 480200. This is not an agreement to lock into an interest rate under Minnesota law. First Class Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
And of course, we thank Jerry for sponsoring the podcast. Jared did send one question through. He says, can we get Ben to call the GPL reunion skate? So we're Vigo and I and Jared and many other people are getting together this Sunday afternoon. We all got started getting together 20 years ago, playing pickup hockey, just fun hockey. He wants you to call that. So stay in town till the next day. And
if I wasn't shipping to Albany on Tuesday, I would, boys. I really would. I'll take a rain check.
It will be a fun skate. I know we have at least one former Gopher is going to be skating with us, so that will be a fun time. Vigo, you and I are in different teams, so don't take me out. It literally has been 5 years since I've skated, so be nice to me.
Chipping pucks deep, going to make you skate.
Well, Viggs, the last time Michigan was here, it was a first round game, and we had the attendance debacle that we all know about. This weekend, the last I heard, Steve was telling me a few minutes ago in the chat that there's 118 tickets left in a 10,000 seat arena this coming weekend. So the atmosphere is going to be quite a bit different this weekend for them, Viggs.
And you're going to see fans who have bought tickets very recently. And so some information I've heard from the athletic department with people familiar with the situation is when people buy tickets within a week or two, they are like 95% likely to use them. So when we've seen ticket scan data coming out of Mariucci, 70%, 60% people coming, I think we're going to see one of the biggest actual scanned attendance crowds at Mariucci Arena in its history. And there's going to be 5 sections of students. And I'm highly confident that there's going to be about 2,000 of them in full force for Saturday night. So get ready for something special. That's all I'm saying.
And Ben, the typical student section is on the east end, those 3 sections.
Yep.
Each section over on each side are being added. So like you said, 2,000 of those are going to be students. It's going to be crazy.
Well, 2 weeks ago for Wisconsin, that's the most. I've been doing games in empty arenas since 2020, and whether it's arenas, football stadiums. I just spent 5.5 months doing the KHL in DC and calling games on monitors. So anytime I can be in the building and anytime that it's sold out like that and like it was 2 weeks ago, I'm a rock guy, man. So the louder the better, man. Let's bring the heat. Let's just deafening sound in that place. Let's make it happen.
And the interesting thing is that when Mariucci's full, Viggs, it is extremely loud. We know the PA system's not the greatest in there and blah, blah, blah. But when there's fans in there, it's loud.
Yeah, it's got like that metal roof that just kind of reverberates everything throughout the rink.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Everybody's in the bowl. There's no kind of extra seating other than the club stuff that's going on. So when the crowd gets loud and the Rousers playing, it's quite the place. And I don't think there's anything like it really in Big Ten hockey. Cole Center can have more people. Value City can have more people, but it's not going to be as loud or as engaged. It's going to have the bright lights, and I don't think you're going to see a lot of empty seats.
That's exciting. Well, let's talk about the game itself here, Ben. And I was going through a couple stats, and through 4 games, Minnesota was 1 for 12 on the power play. Michigan 0 for 11. Not great power play success. And Minnesota's power play goal was the one in overtime here at Mariucci. But so nothing scored on the power play this entire season during regulation play.
I don't think that happens on Saturday, guys. I mean, I don't. I mean, they're a combined 1 for 23, and you're spot on with Myers with the OT winner. So, I mean, do you say it's good goaltending? It's good defensive play? Is it poor shooting? I don't think it's poor shooting with the talent these two teams have. I think, like we kind of talked about earlier about the way these two teams really have to play to go with the skill set they have. You got to play with the will. And I think it's going to be, goals 5-6 feet out. I don't think you're going to see a lot of, 20, 30 footers ripped in. Maybe you do, but I think it's going to be that kind of game. And I think I'll say this. I think each team gets at least one on the PP in this game. I think that trend changes. I do.
Interesting. We didn't see a lot of power play work last weekend, Viggs.
We haven't seen a whole lot of power play work the whole second half of the year. I mean, the refs haven't been calling a lot of penalties the second half. And, Bob always likes to say that it's because his team isn't the one being overly aggressive and putting themselves in position to take penalties. So the refs don't have the marbles to even out. So there just aren't that many chances going out either way. So we'll see what happens this weekend. I think the Gopher penalty kill has actually been really rock solid the last couple weeks. They did give up a goal to Penn State here for the first time in 10 games when they were a man short. But I think the goaltending's been good for Minnesota. The power play for Minnesota has not been great. I think adding Jackson Nelson back to the lineup and having him be a net front guy with Nyes helps this program because then they can really isolate what they want to do. And Simpler is probably better with this Minnesota group because they just struggled all year to really look dangerous up a man.
Look at that. Already, Steve says they're already down to 90 tickets left.
Wow.
From 118 just a little while ago. So it's going to be rocking, folks. Ben, what are you hoping for? Just racehorse hockey? Because I got to tell you, that's got to be fun calling racehorse hockey.
You know what? I've always said, guys, I'm not a coach, so I don't have to worry about wins and losses. And, I as you guys know, I got a lot of energy and, I pride myself in that. I pride myself in that when I call a game. And, when the games are of that, I'd love to see 6-5, but, I think 4-3 is a stretch. I think it's going to be a 2-1, 3-2 game. I'd say 3-2 if I had to. If I had to give an answer, that's where I would go. There's so much skill and these goalies are good, but, these guys that are shooting it and, zinging it all over the ice, are pretty darn good too. So I'm going to go in the 3-2 range, although I would love a 6-5. I really would, man. It would be unbelievable. So.
What do you think, Viggs?
I mean, I think
we're
really
kind of racehorse hockey?
A 3-2 type hockey game this weekend. Both teams know each other pretty well. Watching Minnesota practice, I think they have identified some things in Michigan's game that they do well and that they're going to try to negate. You look at Michigan, one of the flashiest things is Luke Hughes and Owen Power up top on their defensive core. They are very steady there and they contribute a lot of offense for Michigan. They do have that high cycle that can be really dangerous. So that's going to be something to watch. I think both teams are prepping for in-zone play. I don't think there's going to be a ton of transition stuff unless it gets crazy. I just don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see teams disciplined, getting ready for that NCAA tournament style of hockey and trying to get their ground game going.
Now, Ben, I disagree with Viggs a little bit on that because I actually see some of these youthful, talented Michigan players taking advantage of the bigger ice at Mariucci, something they don't play on a lot.
Yeah,
they might love that.
Yeah, look, Minnesota's got some guys that can do that too. So,
yes,
I think I agree with this. I think the attention, look, the green light's going to be there when it's there, but the attention's going to be way more and way more sure on that line of the red line of stopping the opposition.
Mhm.
I mean, both teams, the guys we've talked to, you ask them 2 or 3 keys that they got to do, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is puck management. So, puck management, no turnovers. Like Eric said, through the middle, I think that's going to be a big part. Bigger sheet, I like that. Maybe you see some of that speed go flying down the wings or somebody dashing through the middle. But I think for the most part, at least I think it's fair to say the opening 5 to 10 of that game, I think it's going to be a real test of wills and who's going to crack first. And then I think that dictates how the rest of the game goes from there.
Because Vigs, with all that space, each team can make you pay for it real quickly.
But I think with both teams, you have defensive cores who are great
Yeah.
skating defensive cores. I think if you have a blue line that can't skate very well, it's easy to get exposed on the big ice with people going way wide and using those extra 10 feet, on the side to get around. I don't think you're going to see that as much in this game because both teams are pretty good back there. The one thing that can be an issue for a team like Michigan is taking advantage of the extra space and skating themselves farther away from scoring chances. I think that's one thing that sometimes skilled players lose track of at Mariucci is the corners. You are a long way away from the goal. And when you're on the hash marks on the power plays up against the boards and you just kind of drift out, you are not in a dangerous spot to shoot the puck anymore. So I think that's one thing to watch for, where you have teams that are going to be able to play more possession on the edge and try to create some 2-on-1s with their cycling. I think that's going to be a real key in this game because you've got two, pretty solid coaches who are going to come in with game plans, and will the players execute it? That's always been the question for Minnesota, and I think it will be for Michigan with a young team as well.
Now, Vigs, just quickly, we know both teams have great defensemen. So quite a bit of the key this weekend are the forward responsibilities for both teams, making sure they do their job in back checking and coverage.
Yeah, I mean, that's been an issue for Minnesota is back checking all the way to the net and waiting until the zone gets established before kind of getting ready to get into your normal D-zone setup. That's a spot where Minnesota's been weak at times. Michigan is definitely a team where they can lose you quick. So I think you'll see Minnesota try to be in layers, but they do have to be cautious not to get too far into offense. I think one thing for Minnesota that's going to help them is they're pretty healthy. Lucius is out again with his mystery injury that I think is a 4 to 6 week thing. So read into that what you will. He's not available. It's hard for me to see him coming back in the lineup for the regionals even at this point because you can't just put a freshman like that into this situation. So I think they're going to play without them. Luckily, Minnesota does have pretty good depth. They're healthy now with Nelson, Perbix, Myers, and Walker down the middle, and they've got extra centers if they need them.
All right, Steve Larson's got a question for you, Ben. Does Ben think these two teams are heavy favorites to win the Natty?
Yes.
I think so, too.
I think I said it earlier, guys. I mean, to me, it's not even close. I mean, they're the most talented teams in the country. A lot's changed for Minnesota, but Justin Close has been doing an amazing job in there. What a great story he's been. I mean, Eric Portillo started every game. He's proven his worth in net. The old adage, it starts from the net out. So love the decors of both these teams, as you guys touched on a little bit. And the guys up front, man, I'd take any of the 12 or 13 guys in any lineup and put them on my team. So, yeah, they are definitely that. I think this could be a preview of the national championship. I really do. So, depending on where Michigan and Minnesota go as ones, yeah, it very well could be. But I think with that said, I still think you got to get through Hasty's crew and Mankato.
Oh, boy.
I really do. And I saw Minnesota. I had Minnesota last year in the regional against them. And, so to me, they're the team that's right now, I think, is the favorite to be the overall number one in the tournament. But I think 2 or 3 times in all the years I've done regionals, guys, I've had the overall 1 seed get beat in the first game, so that don't mean much. But yeah, long answer, but yes, they are
Hey, that's just fine.
contenders, both of them.
Oh, Corey, having some fun. How many times did Portillo knock off the net? Vigs, that's more of a Mariucci problem than a Portillo problem. Our boy Ohio State used to do that quite a bit. Napier,
yeah, it is a problem, Mariucci. I would put the over/under though at 5.
Really?
Oh,
Because Portillo's a big goalie who kind of plays that style that knocks off nets, and Mariucci's pegs are not very sound, to be honest. And I've heard refs say that a lot of delay game penalties that they would call at other rinks are null and void when it comes to Mariucci, just because of the way. Maybe Craig Flohr will take a little extra time this week to make sure those holes are just drilled out as well as they can be, so we get some sound goaltending posts this weekend. But we'll see.
I'm not sure if Craig Flohr is listening yet. He usually listens during overtime and tells us all about Mariucci while we're recording. Oh boy, it's going to be fun. I'm just excited. I mean, Ben, I haven't, we've been covering these games for so long that both Vigo and I don't get much chances to go as fans. And this is the first time in quite a few years I'm going to go as a fan and just have some fun. I think it just helps me really kind of keep my faith in hockey, because when you're covering all the time, you know how it is. You have to pay attention to the game, not cheer and things like that. Do you get a chance to just go to a hockey game and enjoy it?
I went to 2 Caps games the short time I was in DC. So
okay,
I mean, you're right. And again, people, a lot of the average person, they think, like you guys go, and if you're covering and what you guys do, and you're covering and you're doing journalism work, or you're doing interviews, whatever, you still have to kind of be on. And for me, all the years I traveled, I mean, people are like, oh, it's great. I'm like, you have no idea. I fly 130 flights a year. Like, that part is not fun unless you're on a charter, and then it's a little different. But, I don't go to a lot of games except for those Caps games I went to through my boss. But it's weird. I'm numb to it because I'm neutral. All the years of doing national stuff, I really haven't, I've worked for a team before, but I just kind of go, and I'm numb to watching games at home. I'm numb to watching them when I go to the arena. I just want to see the best outcome and the best finish I can see. That's all I ever hope for every time I put on a headset.
Well, a little birdie told me that you've been a fan of Michigan State in the past. Is this one of your teams in the past? You probably know who told me that.
Kepke? Jess.
Yeah. No, it was Cappy.
Oh, Cappy told you. Yeah,
Cappy
well,
told
I
me.
mean, I grew up in Holt, south side of Lansing, so that's where it stems from. And I worked there for 6 years in that market as an anchor and reporter, and it was a pretty cool thing to cover Tom Izzo. And back then I covered some pretty good hockey teams, but that was back then, boys. That was like 20 years ago back then. So I'm a Michigan State guy at heart. I like Michigan. I live here, but I know a lot of people on both sides, and I respect them both. But when they play football, I root for Michigan State.
Okay.
That's my only true allegiance to the two schools.
We love it. Cappy, he says, you want to put Ben Holden on the hot seat tomorrow. Ask him what his Spartans should do with their coaching position. It is, we have talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
It's not good at Michigan State right now. It's just not.
I'm fine with that. And I love Cappy, man. He's a great dude and had fun working with him last year. And he's just a fun guy, as you guys know. I think when they do make the change, whenever that is, unless Danton gets it fixed, but they got a lot of work to do, as we know.
Oh, boy.
I would go up to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and get Damon Witten and Mike York. Mike York played there. Damon played there. They were both captains there. And look, I know the last 2 coaches they've had are former players, But if you look at what Damon's done at Lake State and the time he's been there with no budget, I mean, he's got guys from 6 countries he's bringing in to play. They made the tournament more than Michigan State has in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. So that's who I'd go after. I mean, I've heard it might be a bigger name, but I'm not buying the names I've heard. But that's what I would do. I would go get Damon Witten. He's proven at Lake State he can recruit. He doesn't have nearly the budget he has or would have at Michigan State. And Yorkie's a great coach. I've known them both a long time, and that's who I would go out and hire if it's me.
And Viggs, there's always going to be a last place team in every league, but a healthy league has teams go up and down and not just stay at the bottom. So the league needs Michigan State to be back again.
They do. Well, we've talked about it all year. You know, they need a coach who's going to find them an identity and recruit the kind of players that they need to be successful. And for whatever reason, Dan hasn't been able to hit that level where he can recruit the kind of players that he wants to recruit. And so if you're looking at a guy from Lake State, you know, who recruits maybe a different kind of player than everybody else in the Big Ten, you know, there's an avenue there to build a roster over time and build one that's going to be a little different than everybody else in the league. You know, Rolex done a great job of doing that at Ohio State. He doesn't recruit the same as Minnesota and Wisconsin and Michigan. Yep. And every once in a while, he gets his team popping up there, and they are always a team that's difficult to play against. So I think that's something Michigan State's got to look at if they want to make a change. Now, Danton, he's got a lot of
well,
he's deep in thought.
Vigo just froze.
Well, I mean, if I can, I mean,
I'll remove Viggs for a minute while he's unfrozen.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, you look back at Michigan State, you know, really the last name guy they had was Torrey Krug, and that was back in 11 and 12, right? I mean,
and what killed them this year is Lewandowski gets injured.
Yes.
They won like one game after that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, my point's this, man, and what Viggs was saying, I know where he was going, and I agree. They've got to find a way to get some kind of high-end talent in there. I mean, they just haven't had that at that program. And as you guys know, and people watch, I mean, that's a proud program. I mean, they've won national titles, you know, and you got to go back to when Abdelkader and Tim Kennedy were there. And Tim Kennedy was the most skilled guy on that line. Justin was a Michigan guy and a Red Wing pick, and I love Abs. I love him. I've known him a long time, and I knew TK real well too. But the point is, they just haven't had that high-end skill that they used to get that all the time.
Oh, yes.
They just don't get
it. They've wasted actually a lot of good goaltending too.
Oh,
because they've had goaltending there. They've always had goaltending there, it seems like, and it's just been a shame. And you know, we look at it, they have not won a single Big Ten playoff game since the league started. Not even one.
0-13, right?
Oh.
But I will say this.
Over, yes.
Yeah, I will say this. They're the last Big Ten school to win a national title, believe it or not, but they are.
That is true. It was so weird. Michigan State would always just come out of nowhere and just win a tournament.
Yeah, I mean, really, you know.
What a game that was that they won that tournament. They got 2 late goals to win. I mean, they were down by a goal, 2 late goals. They score within the last minute to win the game. That was a crazy game. Yeah, it was in St. Louis versus BC. Steve is telling us here.
19 seconds left when Abs won it.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Oh, Viggs is back. Let's bring him back in. There you are, Viggs.
I lost the whole thing here. So
you were deep in thought. I said.
Yeah, you got frozen. You were like deep in thought. It was a good look.
Furrowed brow.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Jared in the chat was telling me to screenshot the face, but we'll just go back to the original broadcast and we'll see it frozen there. Well, actually, we were just kind of wrapping up Michigan State there, Viggs. But did you have any other final thoughts on them? I mean, it's just tough. We need them to be better.
Well, they just need consistency. And I think if they can get a coach who can deliver that to them, all the better.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, guys, let's get to some final thoughts on this game. Maybe some predictions. We're not going to make you do a prediction, Ben, because you have to stay neutral.
I predicted the score, so I'll.
You can predict the score, yes.
When we do that, I'll do that, yes. But I don't want to pick a winner or loser.
Oh, hey, we totally get it. You are a neutral guy.
That's right.
And by the way, we've had just about everybody on from the Big Ten Network. We finally have you now. We've had Dan Kelly on. We have Cappy on all the time, and we even had Rick Pizzo on.
Freddie?
Back in the past. Yeah. We haven't had Fred yet.
Yeah.
Freddie. Well, look, it's, I learned a long time ago from a lot of guys that taught me along the way. You're always appreciative of the people that ask for your time. And I don't want to get too sappy, but I appreciate you guys asking me. I'm always humbled. I'm always honored when somebody wants to interview me and talk to me and have me a part of their show. And I want to say this, that I was saying before, Viggs, before you got on, Jupiter and I were talking, and I said, Frank Mazzacco is one of my idols. And that's a true story. And when I started as a play-by-play guy in 2004, when I left local news, when I left Lansing, one of the biggest guys that I watched was Frank. I watched him and Wooger. And if I was doing a game at Yost, I could be home in 15 minutes. And back then I did about 20 games a year at Yost. So I loved watching him. He's become a friend, and he's been helpful to me, especially when I went through the transition I went through a couple of years ago at CBS after all the time I spent there. And I had a couple people at BTN that knew me and helped me kind of get back on my feet, and really grateful for that. And Frank was one of the first guys I reached out to because I knew I had to go to somebody that really knew Minnesota's team, because I knew Motts wouldn't tell me the truth. So, and I mean that kindly, but because I've known Motts a long time. But Frank's one of my heroes, and it was cool to see him last time I was in there. I look forward to seeing him again. Sorry, but I just, again, I appreciate the love.
Trust us. We are his biggest fans. He's been on the show 10 times over the year.
Yeah.
He was on our 200th anniversary show.
That's cool.
Earlier this year. So with Cappy, it was fun. We obviously see Frank all the time, and definitely post-game beers with Frank quite often too, V. So it's always fun to be around Frank Mazzacco.
Legend.
Yeah, they taste really good out of a chalice, but extra good when you're with Frank.
Okay. Vig's beer was, I swear this glass was as big as, it was a chalice.
It was a chalice.
It was huge. It was huge this past weekend, Ben. Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah, well,
go bigger, go home.
Fred and I went up. When we were there a couple weeks ago, we went up and we wanted to go over and talk to Wally and, say hi to him. And Frank wasn't there yet. And, I'd snuck out on the side entrance there to have a cigarette, and he snuck up behind me, and we had a nice little conversation. So that made my night. That gave me the extra bump I needed for that game. Although that game was over in about 10 minutes once Myers got them going, and they were on their way to a snowman. So it was a fun night. So,
all right, Viggs, tell us what you think.
Uh-oh.
Where are we going to end up at the end of the night, Saturday night?
I mean, I think this is a team that's learned their lesson in how to play these big games. I don't know if Michigan's going to give them the full test, though, that a team like Minnesota State or UMD might give them. And so it can give them a little bit of a lifeline if they do get in trouble. Whereas I think Michigan will still give some odd man rushes to Minnesota to try to take advantage of. But the way they've been playing overall, I'm not too concerned about them on the penalty kill if they get into penalty trouble. I feel pretty good about Minnesota at center right now, winning draws, especially having Jackson Nelson back now, giving them an extra option behind Myers. I don't think they're going to get caught in the D zone. I think Motzko having last change really protects them there. I think this team, when they have Walker taking D zone draws, can make everybody a little nervous. Think we'll see a 3-2 win for Minnesota in front of a great crowd. I'm predicting over 10,000 capacity. Don't tell the fire marshal.
We have a composer jumping in here. A schooner at Manning's? That's
Uh-oh.
exactly what it was. Our crowd knows us well, or knows Vigs well. Schooner at Manning's. That it was. And like I said, it looked like a chalice. I'm going to stick with you, Vigs, but I think I'm thinking a 4-1 game, and it'll be an empty net goal to make it 4-1. Michigan will need to try to get within. They'll be down by 2, but it's going to be a 4-1 game. I think Minnesota comes together really well, and then both these teams are going to forget about it, Ben. It's time. It'll be time to move on because the big games start next week. What are your thoughts on this day off thing coming up?
I like it. I'll say this. I'm not going to pick a winner, but I will say 3-2. 3-2 is going to be the final score. It's going to be interesting. I've done regionals a long time, and, I got to say I'm stoked to be doing it with Starman. We spent 10 years together in the booth together. And
you'll be Albany, you said, right?
Yeah, we'll be in Albany. So, we're getting we know we're getting either the Gophers, the Wolverines, or the Mavericks. That's who we're going to get as our number one. And nothing's going to change that this weekend. So, it'll be nice not doing 3 games in 24 hours. I guess that's part of the deal. Arrest the pipes a little bit more, but, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good thing. I think selfishly, I'm looking forward to 2 things. I can actually watch some games on Friday because all the years of doing the tournament, it's just, as we know, that first day, there's 6 games or whatever it is, how it works out, and 4. And so that part I'm excited for. And then I think I'm going to find time to get one of 6 states I have left checked off my list. And I'm going to drive to Vermont because it's not that far. So that's my take.
There you go. Ben, I've always said that regional weekend is the best weekend of the year, bar none. Yes, we have all those league championships the week before, and you've got the Frozen Four. But that weekend, previously, you'd sit down Friday afternoon, and you were busy until Sunday afternoon.
And you didn't work much.
Oh, it was just crazy. It's just crazy. It'd be a little different this year, though, Vigs, with the day off in between. We know Motzko and our boy up in North Dakota definitely advocated that after last year when both of those number 1 seeds got the late game, when the late game out east was not the number 1 seed.
Nothing in college hockey passes without a majority. So there are a majority of college hockey coaches who believe in this change. And I think it presents the best hockey. When you're looking at what's good for the game, what's good for the game is rewarding the top teams who've done well over the entire season and have put themselves in the position to earn those top seeds. And you're allowing your best players in college hockey to be fully prepared for the big stage and the most important game of their season. So it doesn't make any sense to me other than schools trying to make those teams play shorthanded and play at nothing less than their best. I think you want to see the best at this time of year, and it makes total sense to me. And anyone who argues differently is self-serving. They're trying to handicap the better teams for whatever reason. And if they were in the position where they were the top seed, they would be just as upset. So I think the only way to do it that's fair is to reward the teams that play well.
And Ben, if you look how it happened to North Dakota last year, it was quite a different situation. You had a Michigan team who couldn't make it.
Yeah. Well,
and they had to play a game before, and UMD didn't have to play the game, and then they had this epic overtime.
Yeah.
I could see where they might be a little upset with some things that were in control, but obviously something like that out of their control.
Well, 2 things, and I was going to play off of Eric's points.
Okay.
And our game, the game Freddie and I did, the Omaha, Minnesota game, was supposed to be on ESPNU, I believe. And we went to I think we went to the Ocho that night. We were on every ESPN channel because that game was bleeding into the window. And then secondly, to Eric's point, look, in basketball, there's a day off in between, right? And it's basketball. Yeah, there's a lot of running. Both sports exert a lot of energy. But in our sport, you have the physical element. You have the risk of the long overtime. That's it. All the years I've done the tournament, guys. That's the one thing sorry to get, spiritual guy, but I would say a little prayer. First game, don't go to overtime. I don't care if the second game goes to overtime. For all the years I've done it, just get through the first one in 60, and then if the other one goes long, great. So those are my two thoughts on it in regards to, the change. And I get it, and I think it's a good thing. I do, I guess, to give a serious answer, I think it's a good thing they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the only other point that a team can make for making it a 3-day tournament is, you want to save one night a hotel? Is that really worth it in your game to cheapen your game by that? That's the only other argument I can see out there.
No, I don't think that's it. I mean, they got a budget for that and they get help on that. So I'm with you on that, man. Let's do it the right way. Let's get the best product we can get out there and showcase the sport in an even better way than it's already showcased, in my opinion, by having guys fresher and like Eric said, teams are more rested. They're ready. You want them to be at their best.
And it allows better teams to scout too.
Yeah.
That day in between, you reward the better coaches that day to prepare.
Yep.
So
you do.
That's just one more feather in the cap of the way that they're going to do it.
I agree 100% with that. Yep.
Well, Ben, thanks for joining us on the show tonight. It's been a blast.
Thanks for having me, boys. It's fun. Now I can put a face with you guys on Twitter, and I don't know who was who, and so it's cool to meet you. And like I said earlier, I really appreciate it.
And the thing is, now that we know you, we can give you a hard time and throw you under the bus whenever we want.
I mean, look, I've taken my fair share of abuse over the years, and I've thought about putting, in regard to that, and I'm kidding, but I thought about putting on my Twitter, on my bio, I don't care if your team loses. Like, I mean what I said earlier. As a broadcaster, all the different sports I've done, no matter where I've been, what stage of my career, all I've ever wanted is to call close, down to the wire, competitive games. No one wants to call a blowout. No one wants to watch a blowout. So I love seeing it unfold in front of our eyes and see the ultimate reality TV come out in front of us. And I'm really, really excited. I was saying earlier, Eric, I don't know if you were on, but this will only be the 4th time I've been in Mariucci. So I was there once with Starman back in like 16. We had an off day in St. Cloud. He was scouting. And then I went and hung with Richie and Clay for the first Wisconsin game and then my game. So cool to get another building off the list. And I love the history of the program and some great people there. I've known Grant Cruikshank a long time and his mom. And so, I got to give Crookie a shout out, man. I think guys like that are going to be big in this game. They got to play. They got to have great shifts. They got to have great shifts every shift out to carry their weight. So I think those guys are big guys in this game for both teams.
Well, again, thanks for coming on. We're going to get you on again sometime down the line.
Anytime.
Viggs, are you working on anything this week? I know you kind of had something in the hopper a little bigger, but
we'll see. I'm trying to get something put together for tournament time. The coaches are very, very focused on this Saturday. I think they really want to win this one, so they're pretty focused.
Yeah,
boy, are they. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the GPL Podcast. Want to thank Ben Holden for joining us again this week. We'll be back next week to wrap up the BigTen Championship and preview the NCAA tournament. For those of you currently watching live, stay tuned for some overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL Podcast. Look at that. You were muted when you opened it, though, Vig, so we didn't hear it on the post.
What?
Yeah. Then you unmutes, and then you can hear you glug, 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 glug.
I might just go in the bed now.
Hit the bed, girl. What you got tonight? What's the beer of the week, Vigs?
So we got a little Lupulin Brewing Company, double dry hop Hui. Is there 6.2% hazy India Pale Ale from Big Lake, Minnesota. I seriously, I thought I unmuted myself, cracked it. It was a tremendous sounding pour.
Oh,
look at this thing. I got the fancy glass.
Like
And we kind of have a sponsor this week too. Lupulin and 1010 Washington Wine Spirits gave us a 4-pack tonight. So cheers to them, and cheers to Lupulin.
Nice.
All right,
Puckhound, you know I always go for 2. I'd go for 3 if they let me.
Well, I'm sorry that I didn't want to just yell out, "Can't hear you, Viggs," during the closing of the show, but it always makes an interesting end to the audio part of the podcast, Ben, when you're glug 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 glug, or the
Very nice.
Boy, it's gonna be crazy there this weekend, Viggs.
I've heard they've sold 3,000 student tickets for 1,900 seats.
That's what it normally is, 19?
No, it's normally less. It's normally like 1,000 students.
Oh, wow.
And they'll sell like 2,000 or 2,500 to fill that 1,000. But now they've got 5 sections set aside for them.
Yeah.
It's 1,900 seats. They sold 3,000 for those 1,900.
Nice.
So I don't. Jesus. Someone was talking about standing room only. I think they're going to let the students take all those.
So are we just talking now, or are we still on?
We're still live to the people watching us, but we're not. It's not part of the recorded podcast anymore. We have this overtime thing for just the people who watch us live, which is 37 people watching us right now. We just have fun. We just have fun.
So you can be slightly off the record, but within reason.
So I didn't tell the whole story about when I saw Frank.
Oh.
So Frank says to me, he goes, "Hey, Benny," he goes, "I know you haven't been here much." And I said, "No, I've only been here 3 times." And he said, "I want you to walk around when you're done with your smoke. I want you to walk around the corner and look at something historical." And I took the bait, obviously. But I didn't walk yet. I was still having a dart. And I said, "All right, man, I'll go, And he's like, "I'm just messing with you." He goes, "There's people over there buying tickets. That hasn't happened here in years."
It's been tough. We have had this conversation 1,000 times on this show about what is needed to be done. And a lot of things that came together all at once, Ben, from reseeding the arena to joining a new league to a team that wasn't playing well. It was like a tornado, Viggs, wasn't it? It really, and it's a variety of things that has caused this thing, but hopefully they're back.
Yeah, it's kind of a perfect storm. Like, they did so many things to upset the fan base and not retain them. And Minnesotans, we're spiteful people. We will hold a grudge for a very long time and be sure to bring it up. I mean, if you don't know Minnesotans, just say, "Have you gotten over that 91 Halloween blizzard yet? Have you let it go? Or do you still remember what you were doing that night and how long it took you to shovel out?"
How much snow? 4 feet?
Oh, it was like, well, we don't get that here. We don't have the big lake effect snow, but it was like 2 feet.
30. It was 30
it was like
some places.
It's the wind up there, man. Like you guys, like here it's cold, but man, it's different cold up there. It goes right to the bone up there, and up further up 94, as you guys know, it's cold.
Oh, I've been up in the Grand Forks when it's been 25 below. And it's even windier up there because there's nothing to slow down the wind up there.
And I've told Sandelin for years, man. I was like, you know what? Because we always talk about golf every time we talk, and I always thought it'd be a cool trip. There used to be a direct for me up to Duluth, but I mean, even when I went up there all those years, I would fly to Minneapolis and just drive up.
Yeah,
because I wanted to drive it and all that. But every time I was there, it was like 25 below zero. I said, I need to fly in here in the summer, golf with you for like 4 days, and drive. I always want to drive around Lake Superior and come back down through the Sioux, through the UP.
Yes.
So I haven't done it yet, but it's still on my bucket list, as is. So we talked to Hugelin today, and I told Freddie when we got done talking to him that I really liked him. Good young guy. And I said, you know what's on my bucket list? Going to a Roseau Warroad high school hockey game one year. I want to experience that.
So, Jess Myers could probably hook you up with that.
Good old Jess.
But the thing is, probably the best time to make that drive is when the hockey season starts at the beginning of or late September, early October.
Yeah.
Oh, the drive around that at that time, let's say mid to late September, would be amazing.
Yeah, it would.
Amazing.
It would. And we could still golf too. So
yeah, if you get up to Duluth early in the year, have you heard of Northland Country Club?
I have. Yeah, I've heard Sandy mention it.
Yeah, you have to play there. Like that is the course to play in that area. It is awesome.
You a big golfer?
Yeah, I'm a big golfer, and
Cool.
You have to get a caddy there. Like you'll get local kids who play like high school hockey, and they'll have good stories about high school hockey in the area. And the greens there are very, very complicated. Everything breaks to the lake. So there's these Donald Ross optical illusions.
Yeah.
Like you'll be hitting into a green and it looks like it's a backstop. But really it just lands and just rolls and rolls and rolls forever. And you would never think that coming into it. So it's just a really cool course.
Reminds me of the U of M course here in Ann Arbor. I'm like 15 minutes north of Ann Arbor, so not a little town, but a town called South Lyon. So there was a former Michigan player. His name was Danny Fardig. You guys may remember him. He was a fourth line plumber. He wore 26.
I recognize the name.
He was tight with Mark Matera and Kevin Porter in that era, Caloric and those guys. Anyway, so I got to become really good friends with his dad, Digger. And his dad won 9 letters at Michigan. He was a hockey player, but he was also a golfer. And they had the alumni outing there every year. And I'll never forget, first time I played there, I was in Digger's group. He goes, Benny, every putt breaks left towards State Street, just to Eric's point. Every putt and every green goes to State. It could be angled this way, and State Street's here, and it still goes that way.
It's amazing.
Vigo, what did you start? Now they're all talking about the Storm.
Oh, well,
you mentioned that.
That's our demographic.
I mean, here we go.
Remember that, yeah.
Living in Duluth, had a party that night, was living with St. Scholastica hockey players. Epic Storm. I mean, way to go, Viggs. You just had to bring it up so all the Minnesotans could talk about it.
Mm-hmm. That's what we do.
Well, your boys won tonight, I saw. I think was it 3-2 or they get an empty netter?
They finally win?
The Wild have been a struggle lately.
Oh.
I follow Micheletti, so I'm well versed in that.
He's got a good gig with that Wild fan line after the games.
Yeah, Pat's another dude like Frank, man. Like just salt of the earth. You guys know, man. Like we talk all the time, man. I was at Penn State early in the year, and I talked to him for 2 hours on the way home the next day, just about nothing. We just were. So yeah,
we've had Pat on the show, I think 3 times now. But one of my fun instances with him is, I retweeted it today, the empty arena shot when Michigan was here a few years ago.
I saw that. Wow.
He came over to me at the end of the second period or end of the first period that night. He says, "What are you posting that for?" I'm like, "This is what's real." Yeah, I think he was just kind of mad at the whole situation. He's like, "You shouldn't be doing that. It makes him look bad." I'm like, "Well, we're just showing what all the people are seeing." And but it was fun because there's nobody more passionate for golf or hockey than Micheletti.
Yeah.
And actually, I think Viggs, his passion for all Minnesota hockey has really increased since he's been doing a lot of St. Cloud and a lot of other schools.
Yeah.
He loves all the schools in Minnesota now, Viggs.
Yeah, he's kind of a talisman for the state of Minnesota for hockey because he can switch his hat for whatever audience he's with, and he'll wear the St. Cloud hat when he's pumping their tooting their horn. And Minnesota State's been easy to toot their horn the last couple of years. So then of course the Big Ten's got him doing his Micheletti Awards now too.
Yep, they was doing a weekly video thing.
I think it was a little hard for him to say that the Big Ten is really a top conference because he's been going after NCHC for quite a while. So
well, they've had a reason to. They've been the best.
They've been the winners. They've done very well in the national tournament.
Here's our guy Taylor. The other thing we will love to bitch about is the Mike Leg goal.
You know what I love to complain about in regard to that is that it's not called the leg. It shouldn't be called the Michigan. It should be called the leg. And then
Right.
I will tell you this. So 2 things. I met Mike a few times. Played with his dad 1 year at the alumni game. That was a hell of an experience. But I get called out when I do it on social media by Pat Ferschweiler, because Bill Armstrong, who's a former Western player, he did it like 6 times in the International League. The difference was nobody saw it like they saw Legger's goal. So, yeah. But so
it wasn't the winning goal, folks. It was the tying goal. Michigan did score another goal again in that game to win the game.
Yeah. So
it was a hell of a goal. I mean, it sucks because it was against Minnesota, and both those teams had some great teams back then.
Unreal. Watch McLaughlin or somebody do it on Saturday.
We've seen them try to do it a couple times.
Right.
No one's actually been able to have the time to pull it off, but we've seen them pause and kind of flex the stick a little bit and then give up on it.
I could see
Viggs,
him doing it.
Who did it at Mariucci last year, Viggs? Somebody did it. It was like a weird bounce. All of a sudden it was on his stick, and he just went, as he went around the net, he just did it real quick.
Yeah, and that was more, it was fortunate it ended up on a stick. And
it just literally laid it on his stick right behind the net like that. And it was just a really fluid motion. Was it Penn State, maybe? The fans are listening.
I'm starting to wonder if it was like Caulfield or something like that. But it was just more of a luck thing than a real.
It was a luck thing.
Goal.
I should have threw this in my prediction.
Johnny
boys.
Walker, ASU. Look at this. Look at these.
Yeah, there you go.
That sounds familiar.
Yep.
I should have.
And it was an instant thing.
Yeah, I remember that now that you say that. I should have threw this in my prediction when we were doing the actual show, but Brodzinski's getting one. I was texting a lot with his dad. I got a good feeling.
Boy, he made the play though, Viggs. When they missed the 2-on-1, they started going back the other way real quick. He got his stick out, poked that puck off, and started the play.
Yeah, there are a couple players that can get into Bob's doghouse. Brodzinski got into it a little bit on Saturday. He didn't play a ton in the second period, but he made the play when it mattered.
That's right. I'm watching that game back tomorrow. I haven't watched it back yet, so. But
22's missing a little bit during the second period, but he comes back.
Yeah.
There's our boy Jared Klein. Ben, what hockey event is on your bucket list to call?
Oh, it's a call? Well,
yeah.
What? An NHL game would be great. Man, that's tough. I mean, all the years I've been doing the college game, I'd love to do a Frozen Four. That'd be pretty awesome, but I don't think Bucci's letting me slide in there anytime soon. So,
those. Yeah, since Bucci kind of took over the college hockey thing, he's been the main guy. Before that, they had Gary Thorne a few years, which I gotta admit was pretty cool. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was. I was fortunate enough to be doing regionals. I started back then in 2007 and we did the Hobie show a couple years with Clay and got to meet Gary. He's certainly one of my idols, along with Dave Strader, who I was pretty close with. And, but yeah, man, it's cool. Bucci was another guy that, when I went through what I went through at CBS, he reached out to me and I didn't even know he knew who I was, man. And he got my number from Richie, and Sean and I have been friends since he did his first game with me. And, we're really good friends, and Bucci, Bucci was there when I needed an ear, and he was a supportive dude, man. So,
well, it's just kind of the one thing though. I've always talked with Frank Mazzacco about, he was the voice that go for hockey on television in the 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing is, he was pretty much done after the Final Five was over. He did a couple regional games here and there, but that was it.
Yeah.
It's like the Final Five was the pinnacle for him because he knew it's going to be a national thing. He's not going to ever get to call a game for a national championship. And then I always tell him now it's a little different. You're on radio now. You do have that opportunity to be part of a national championship. So things might work out for him in the end. Not that he's had it rough.
No, it's, doing the tournaments, pretty freaking cool, man. I mean, it's, it's for me, it's a thrill. It's like Christmas Day, you get to be a part of the sport's biggest stage, and we're all just merely players in it, but we're there. And I've loved the sport like you guys for a long time. It's given me a lot, and met a lot of great people, and had a lot of incredible memories. So it's been it's given me a lot. I don't know that I could ever give it back. So I just love doing the games. And like Saturday, man, like I wish every game could be like Saturday, or 2 weeks ago when it was at your place. And that's what it's all about for me, to showcase these guys and, tell their stories and have fun.
Well, we were actually pretty surprised 2 weeks ago because that Friday night, the student section Vigs was almost full a half hour before the game. And that's just something we haven't seen at Mariucci ever.
Yeah, I mean,
never even back in the heyday.
Really?
Even back in the heyday, people were at Sally's and at the bar, like trying to have one more and get there more towards puck drop. For whatever reason, Minneapolis isn't one of those rinks where everybody tries to get to the rink as soon as they can to get those seats, like at Amsoil, North Dakota, Engelstad, even the Cole Center. The students get there early to get down there for warmups and start trying to get in the other team's heads. At Mariucci, that hasn't really been a thing. I don't know if it's because they're not on the glass or whatever. They can't quite get into the players' heads or whatever, but that's never really been a thing here. And I noticed it with the football program recently that the students have been better about getting there early and making sure to be full for the starting lineups. And they have kind of changed the culture a little bit. So I'm expecting it to be buzzing quick.
Row the boat, baby. Row the boat. I love PJ.
PJ has done more for athletics at the U than any figure in the last 50 years.
Well, hopefully he's there, man. Feely, when I was with Feely, man, we were together 4 years. We did a lot of his games, man. A lot of his games when he was climbing the ladder. I love him, man. He's a great dude.
If you see Rovnak there, let me know, Vigs.
Oh, I mean, he's been around. He's been bringing recruits to hockey games lately because who doesn't want to see that kind of atmosphere?
Right.
It's going to be like some of those big football games, like that Penn State game, like that Wisconsin game, where the venue was just primed for that kind of moment. And I think we're going to see that again on Saturday.
Yeah,
he did the Let's Play Hockey for the Wild a couple nights ago.
Last week,
yeah, tons of energy in that one. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do some sort of thing special for this one. I think it'd be neat. I hope they don't put him out in goal, though. I saw that.
Murray did that shit to him at Western, man. Murray threw the pads on him and threw him out there. He did it. He did it Minnesota too, right?
Yeah, because he told that story to Bob, and Bob's like, are you trying to suggest you want to do it again? And then PJ's like, well, I can't back away from that when he just challenges me like that. You know what? I can't go home with the tail between my legs. I got to do it, right?
Andy wouldn't have let him out of that one, man. I don't know if you guys know Andy, but he's pretty stern about business, man. But I like him. He's a great guy. But yeah, he did that at Western. It was pretty funny.
The only thing about PJ doing it for Minnesota is some of the players are doing a little headhunting, trying to pick corners. And I think PJ is like, maybe this wasn't such a good idea.
Leaning the wrong way.
Yep. He's like, he was tucking that helmet in there pretty tight to the neck, making sure. Yeah.
Right off the coconut. That's funny.
Well, I picked the best game, I think, to be a fan. It has been years I've been down there. I'm getting more pumped by the day, Vigs, that I can just sit back, relax, watch a game, bring in the girlfriend. We're going to have a great time. It's really going to be an unprecedented crowd, Vigs, because we've never had even close to that many students ever.
No, not for
New
hockey.
Mariucci, old Mariucci, it's never been this way.
I was looking back. I've got ticket data for the last 7 years for scans. And the biggest crowds were February 25th, 2017, 9,050 was the actual scanned attendance in the building. And they sold 10,469 tickets for that one.
Wow.
And then in 2019, they really sold a big crowd is 10,686, and that's the record announced attendance, but only 8,229 people came.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see records for both number of tickets sold and number of tickets scanned Saturday.
So, Ben, what Vigs does, they always announce tickets sold.
Yeah.
That's just what every place does. It's just how.
Yeah.
But Vigs knows the secrets to, hey, let's get the scan ticket data. And he gets the actual numbers. And it's become a popular thing, hasn't it, Vigs? That article you write every year.
Yeah, it got me on Minnesota Public Radio once to do All Things Considered, which was kind of a cool little deal.
Nice.
So I heard from a lot of people I hadn't heard from for a long time when I made that appearance. So that was fun. They are not athletic subscribers and they don't follow GPL. So that was a cool deal. But it's kind of fun to see how it's going. And you can definitely notice this year that it's just coming up and up and up. Like just the
Especially
enthusiasm
the
around the rink, and the students play a huge role of that.
In fact, we've seen times where it's been a ton of students and maybe half empty arena, and it's still a ton of noise. You get that many students making a lot of noise. Like I said, that arena is one of the loudest.
Yeah.
When people are making noise.
Yeah, campus is not the easiest place to get to and get around. So I think that's one hurdle they have to still try to figure out. But
How they do it for football?
Yeah.
yeah, people show up early for football though. Like they try to find ways to get people to the venue sooner so that it's easier. Like this weekend, they're going to do that outdoor tailgate. And
Yeah.
I know a big reason they do that is they're expecting a big crowd. So the more people they can get to show up early, the easier it is for those people to get to their seats for a puck drop.
Get ready to rock and roll, folks.
Let's go.
Ben,
We've been
do you
waiting
have
for this for a while.
Ben, do you have a favorite moment that you've called for college hockey? Like, is there something that stands out where like that was really cool to be a part of?
Oh yeah, I got a lot, man. I mean, wow. I got to think, man. There's a lot of them. I mean, one of them was it was in 08. It was the regional in Madison when North Dakota made it through and they beat Wisconsin. That was unbelievable, man. I thought the roof was going to come off that place. That's up there. My first tournament I did, state was in that, so that was nice. They won the whole thing that year. I mean, coming to your place, man. I mean, that's up there. I mean, doing my first game I ever did at Michigan as a professional broadcaster. That was cool. Doing my first game as a professional broadcaster, period, was at Michigan State. So that was pretty cool. Doing a game at Army. First time I ever went to West Point was 08, and I did Air Force Army. And I remember, if you guys ever been to West Point?
No,
but I've been to all the other ones.
All right, so you've been to the other academies. So
yeah,
Mikey Stadium, you go down this hill, like the stadium's up here, and you go down this hill, and it curves around. The football practice field's there, the hockey rink's on the other side. And I remember driving down that road when I went to do the hockey game in 08, and I remember looking up at the stadium and the press box. I was like, man, it'd be cool to do a football game there. Well, 4 years later, I ended up starting a 9-year run of being the voice of their football package on CBS.
Nice.
So that one was pretty cool. And there's not much that compares in sports to seeing two academies, especially after the game when they join together and they're saluting, the flags are out, and I serve my country and very patriotic that way. So that always meant a lot to me. I know that's a lot, and there's probably ones I'm missing, but those would be the highlights, for me. And,
Okay, on the flip side, how was television at Loveland last year? Because from what I hear from Wally and Frank, radio was stuck in a corner somewhere, and it was awful. How was television?
Well, don't tell them this, but we were right at center ice. In the suite. I mean, the radio guys are always nitpicking us, and
Well, because they're usually close to you guys, or in this case, Mariucci on the opposite side. But he says it was tough because when you're that far off of center ice, things are pretty far away.
Yeah, I always felt bad for Tim Hennessy, our buddy at North Dakota. And I felt bad in this way. So at Miami, it's got to be the worst radio setup for any place I've ever seen in any sport.
Oh,
so there's a chunk of the wall that comes out, which is basically the end of the press box. And you're probably just inside of the dots. So you're in between the dots and the net. That's how far you are away from the other end. So it's awful. Yeah, no, it was fine there. We had a good spot. It was, it's an American League building, so it was just one bowl, and it was great, man. We had no complaints. So
boy.
I love the one at Mariucci. I'd never been in that, as I told you guys. I'd only been in that building twice before that game 2 weeks ago that I did there. That's an awesome setup, man. I mean, there's a lot of them around the country that I like, a variety of different buildings, but that one, the way it's set up, it's absolutely perfect. I'm guessing, did Frank have anything to do with that? The setup of that booth, the TV booth?
He might have, because originally the TV booth was the only thing up there. They didn't have the
suites.
Suites.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, Steve has reminded me of something of the old Mariucci. We've seen this video before, Vigs. There's an old video from Frank and Wally calling a game on Channel 29, late 80s against Michigan State. And there's a camera shot of the Michigan State radio guys who are in, I think, where Goldie's perch was, Vigs, or something like that.
Oh, really? Under the scoreboard there?
They were under the scoreboard at the end.
Yeah.
And the thing is here, Ben, it was above the glass. So they're wearing helmets up there, afraid they're going to get hit.
Those radio guys. That's one reason I got into TV, man.
That's a great video. It's out there. I mean, they pan to them. You see these guys wearing helmets calling the game, and they're wearing hockey helmets because they're afraid they're going to get hit with a puck.
They're worried that Pat Micheletti is going to try to hit one of them on purpose.
So I got a quick.
It might have been a little past Pat's time, but it was a 2-game total goal series between Michigan State and Minnesota to go to the Final Four, as it was known back then. It was still the Final Four.
So I wanted to tell you guys, I got a little quick Micheletti story. So
oh boy,
I worked with Pat. I worked with him I think I worked 3 games with him, and the first time I worked with him, we did Omaha at North Dakota. So I met him at MSP, and we flew up on the little, the small little jet to Grand Forks. And my girlfriend, who's sitting here on the couch hanging out with me, she was on the trip with me. And Pat, so it was a great weekend, and I dragged her up there in January. So she went to the Ralph. The next night, the Gophers played St. Cloud in St. Cloud. So it was a great weekend, right? We drove down, dodged the weather. It wasn't bad. Coming down from Grand Forks to St. Cloud. So Pat was only doing the Friday game with me, and he knew I was doing the Gophers the next night. And as we're up front of the plane, like second or third seat, he's in like 8 or 9 in the, a little further back. And he goes, "Hey, Benny, here's a Gopher media guide if you want to do a little studying." And so, I flipped through it on the 45-minute flight, and I get to the back, and I didn't know this about Pat. I get to the back, and he's freaking second all time in scoring at Minnesota. And I'm like, this sandbagger. So he comes in the front, and he goes, "All right." We waited for him, me and my gal. And I go, "You're a sandbagger, dude. I didn't know you were that good of a player, man."
Did you see how many penalty minutes that he had, too?
Oh yeah. I think he had 230 some points, maybe, or somewhere north of 2.
98.
And he probably had.
Or,
did he have 300 minutes in PIMS, Eric?
He's got to have at least. Hold on.
Yeah, you guys are on it.
I've got the old.
There it is.
I've got the older one here, but
yeah,
I don't have the new one. If there really isn't a new one that was made public this year.
Man, I didn't know you were that good of a player, dude. I was like, wow. And I asked him before with
269 points for Micheletti, 298 for Mayasich.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's crazy.
Bye.
He is number one in penalties in a season with 65, and number one in penalty minutes in a season with 154.
Nice. So
Looks
he's
like
got
Corey, 403 totally penalty minutes.
Career, he's third in penalty minutes. 400.
Isn't DeMarkey the leader there?
Yeah, DeMarkey and McAlpine have more.
Wow.
Not DeMarkey.
That's even more impressive because he didn't play in the era of 5-minute majors.
Well, Nikolai used to say sometimes he'd take a penalty so he wouldn't have to hear from his coach about the last shift that he had. And so he could go in the penalty box for a little bit and then just come out and then just keep going and maybe score a goal. And then the coach would forget about that bad shift before.
I talked to him before Wisconsin, and because Granado brought him up, and all their wars back in the day, and so I had to talk to him and get a Wisconsin story. And I said, "What's your best Wisconsin weekend?" He goes, "Well, I was hurt. I hadn't skated in 18 days. They were only going to play me a handful of shifts, and I scored 3 each night."
It was a different era. I mean,
oh yeah,
it was just a different era. You're not going to see 100-point guy anymore.
No, they're gone.
I mean, it's it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, they're totally gone.
What's the point leader right now, Viggs, in the league? He wasn't even a finalist. Isn't that what people are saying? He's not a Hobie finalist.
No, I don't think he was. Those penalty minutes and that reputation probably held him back.
Yeah, that'll happen because we saw Ryan Patolny lead the country in goals when he had 38. Nobody had scored that many in 10 years, and I don't believe it was matched until maybe last couple of years, but wasn't a finalist just because you got to do more than score goals. That's just kind of how it is. I mean, Wally has told us that, Viggs. It's more than just what you're doing on the ice. It's what you're doing off the ice. It's how you represent yourself, how you represent your team, your sport. It's a lot more to it.
But there's also some stats in there too. It was interesting to see Luke Hughes get a finalist bid and Owen Power left off. Interesting. Luke Hughes had a great year, but I think most people would probably take Owen Power first.
I don't know.
Ben's gritting his teeth. Okay.
Well, I mean, player to player, is that what you're saying?
Would you rather have Hughes or Power?
Power.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, they're both still developing. And once Power develops more offensively, look out, man. Because he controls it, man. He runs the show. And I think once he gets to the next level, I think you're going to see that offensive game come, man. And it's not that he doesn't try it. I just think Luke's better at that part of the game right now.
I think
and I also think he's playing it smart. I think he's playing it smart. He knows that he needs to concentrate more on the defensive side, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he jumps a lot, man.
Yeah.
He jumps as much as Luke does, man. But I just think, but on the other hand, Hughes has got to work on the other side of the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Fred and I talked about that before the Olympics. He's like, should he be on Fred thought he should be on the Olympic team. I said, no, I don't think he's going to make it.
How about both Minnesota and Michigan going undefeated with all their Olympic guys gone?
It's unreal, man.
That's crazy.
Well, because we were doom and gloom here. That was literally we all thought, and I think rightly, because Ohio State was playing great at the time. That was their chance to get ahead and put Minnesota, Michigan behind. They did okay during that month, but then obviously they finished out the season terribly, and all it takes is one little upset, and they're going to be gone, Viggs. But for both Minnesota and Michigan who were undefeated, even North Dakota had like one loss when they lost Sanderson. The college teams did pretty well with their kids gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think in general, we were kind of super nervous about Minnesota. Like when LaFontaine left, we were all nervous here about what was going to happen. They could have gone south real quick. They could have had guys not come back from Beijing. They could have turned pro. There's a lot that could have happened. And for them to keep together like this, I think speaks highly of the leadership and the team and the guys that did stick around. Kudos to them.
I think too, I haven't seen a lot of it, but those that would, say, well, Bob wasn't coach of the year and he should have a good team, but think of what he's been through. None of us can probably imagine what he's been through, Mm-hmm. That's not even counting coaching a team.
I mean, even professionally, like all the stuff he's had to deal with this year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to say, Eric. I mean, number one, Mac, and then, Jack Bales. And like you said, all those guys, he deserves it, man.
Well, and I think the defensemen like Lacombe, Johnson were totally off their games the first half of the year. And he figured out a way for those guys to kind of pull the pieces back together. In the second half of the year, Lacombe's been awesome. He's been really steady, like no mistakes, getting the puck in the right spots, taking shots, walking the blue comfortably, not turning it over.
I know.
Whereas early in the season, he was though, Viggs. I mean, how many times we turn it over in the blue line
every game,
and all of a sudden it's
every
2-1 going the other way, and it was just like. But yeah, he really learned, Viggs. I think he learned that. He has limits to his game. Play to your strengths, and boy, has he.
Wow. Ben, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I know he's not one of the headliners, but I think he's gonna play for a long time, and that's Mike Kester. I really like him, man. He just when he's on, I just like the way he plays.
Every time we bring up like Faber or Lacombe, Bob always brings up Kester. And I honestly think that if Kester got like full-time power play opportunity, he would have just as many points as anybody else back there. He just makes great plays.
He does, and he reminds me of Perunovich a little bit in that way. I don't know what you guys think or feel, but, I saw a lot of him, obviously, and you guys probably did too, but he reminds me, from the stature of him to the way he plays. He just reminds me of Perunovich.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got as much grittiness in puck battles as Perunovich does, but I think like playmaking and ability to play with the puck and support teammates offensively, he's right there with them.
Yeah, two guys I love them at St. Cloud. If Jack Ashan, like the way Jack had that just bulldog mentality, man. He'll make it. That kid's gonna stick, man. I'm telling you.
Viggs, I'm seeing that Cooley did sign his letter of intent sometime recently.
Yeah, I think today it became official. So no worries about him going anywhere else. Probably number 1 or 2 pick in the draft this summer. Spurns, Notre Dame, and sort of his hometown, Penn State. And he'll be a Gopher next year. So I think that was an interesting coup for Bob. Yeah, he's going to be a player.
Wow.
He's got that wide, stable skating stride and ability to make plays in transition that going to make people's eyes pop.
A lot to look forward to, folks. A lot to look forward to.
Yep.
Though was it Randy Johnson asking who was it at the end of the availability day that talking about his future? No comment.
Faber. Well, that's because
sorry.
That's because when Bob was talking about Brock, I was kind of asking about like his path and how he was committed elsewhere and eventually ended up in Minnesota and what makes him so good. And Bob was going on and on about how good Brock is. And he's like, man, you're going to see him really blossom in the next 2 years here. And we were laughing, but like with our masks on, I don't think
that was the
anyone could quite see it. And Bob's like, I thought that would get a better laugh. But it's, I don't know. Some people think that he'll be back for one more. Some think he'll be playing for the Kings. If anybody in the Gopher lineup, he is probably the most pro ready. He's just so good on contact. like playing the puck with a body on or going and shutting somebody down and coming away with the puck. I mean, he's got pro skills. That's the biggest thing I think for a defenseman going from amateur hockey to pro hockey is how to handle contact, especially on puck retrievals. Faber's going to have no problem with that.
I talked, you guys might know this, Brock might have mentioned it, but maybe he didn't. And I talked to Quinny yesterday because I wanted to get his take on all 5 of these guys, just in case we need, to drop something in from the Olympics and all of them on one sheet together. And he said, Faber, he said, he's Charlie McAvoy is what he is. And I told Brock that today. And he goes, yeah, it's funny because we had that conversation before I left and he told me the same thing. And so we got some cool shit out of Brock, on that. And so we'll probably try to share some of that a little bit more on the game Saturday. It was good stuff.
And I'm sure any NHL beat writer is going to love having Brock in that room because he's an awesome interview. He's really
so savvy, man.
Thoughtful and put together.
Yeah. Him and Myers, man. Like Myers is it just me or is it because he's from Minnesota? But Ben Myers reminds me the way he looks, the way he carries himself, the way he sounds. Even he reminds me of Kirk Cousins.
Oh, Ben is better one-on-one than in a group.
He's good. He just reminds me of him, Eric. He's a
little wary
of the media, man.
He's very focused.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you guys see Kirk a lot, man, and he's a Sparty, but he just reminds me of him that way.
It's interesting.
I mean, I can see it just like the focus. I'm not sure that Ben quite puts down like no cards coming into press conferences. Like I know Kirk Cousins, drills with his wife like before availability. He's like, I know they're gonna ask me this. Let's try this one again. I'm sure he does. He is so type A that I think Kirk totally is like, I'm gonna say this exact thing. Test me on it. Ben's a little more free flowing. He's a hockey player.
He's so driven though, man. Like I got a lot of respect for that dude, man. We talked to him before the series at State where it was just like, holy shit, man. Like he put a piano on his back and he's like, let's go, guys. Like, and you can say what you want about State, but you still got to go out and do it, and he just, both those games, man, he just took them both over, man. So in Wisconsin, obviously too, and other games too, but
I think I'd pay good money to see Brock and Ben do puck battles on like forechecking drills for a good 20 minutes. Just throw pucks in the corner and see which one will come out with it.
Yeah.
Because they're both really good at it. Like
they're
going to make a lot of money because of that skill set.
Yep, they are, man. They are. They really are. No doubt.
Well, I'm going to shut it down a little early tonight. I cannot go to midnight like we have other nights. So, Ben, thanks for joining us. It's been great to have you.
Got it, man.
It depends on how early I get there. I'm going as a fan, but I may come up and try to say hello if I get the chance when you're not broadcasting. And I will say hello.
No, we'll be there. Freddie and I are pretty early. We like to get in there in the quiet and settle in. We'll probably be there.
Oh, yeah.
We'll probably walk over it. We'll probably walk over from the hotel at 4:30. So I know Daddy Brodzinski's coming up to see me. So we're going to have a little chat.
Oh, boy.
So, you guys know him?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Daddy Brod's a fun one.
He's a good dude, man. So
man of the earth.
Called a shit ton of goals of his 3 of his 4 boys anyways.
Wow.
Yeah. I feel bad because I always forget that Mike was a gopher, man.
He's a gopher and a husky. So he's got torn allegiances himself.
No, I meant little Mike.
Oh yeah. Michael, yeah.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah. No,
there's too many of them. I can't keep track.
Right? Yeah, we call Papa Brodzinski and Little Brodzinski for that one.
Yeah, right on, guys.
But yeah, it's a funny family. They've
thanks
got
for coming
Danny
on,
in there
Ben.
now too. So
anytime, guys. I enjoyed it.
When we hear you're calling another like big game, and for BigTen Network and the Gophers are part of it, let's get you on again, sir.
All right. Well, if I get them in the regionals, then absolutely, man. We could. If I get them in Albany, like that Thursday or that Friday would be perfect, man, with that off day. So, yeah.
We may have to do that. Thanks, Ben.
See you, boys.
See ya. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this week. Let's
get to the rink if you can.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, folks.
See ya.